I'll bring you to life. Bring me to life. I can't wait anymore.
Starter Robbie Supple is ready for them now. The flags are raised. They're off. Yes, welcome everyone to the 2024 Cheltenham Festival, all live of course here on Racing TV from admittedly soggy Prestbury Park here on day one, where the feature event of course is the Unibet Champion Hurdle. There may be a feeling of Hamlet without the Prince with Constitution Hill, sadly a defector. Who will take over his crown? That is the big question. State Man is the one who looks in pole position. Last year's runner-up, part of an incredible array of talent assembled by Ireland's champion trainer, Willie Mullins. He's got all four favourites in the Grade 1s today, and with the likes of El Fabiolo and Galopin des Champs to come later on in the week, the magical three-figure barrier could well be breached come Friday evening. Dan Barber will be along to join me very shortly indeed to go through all the day one action. But for now, we're going to say a very good morning to Tumble.
Gary, thank you very much indeed for that. Yes, welcome to Cheltenham. We're out on the track ahead of a four-day extravaganza of top-class racing. Adele Mulrennan is alongside me to enjoy all the morning's action. We've got plenty on. We'll come to that in a few moments' time. But the conditions aren't what we hoped they would be. Soft, heavy in places. The umbrella's going AWOL at the moment. So we got, I think, a fair bit of rain in store this afternoon too. Yeah, we've got loads to look forward to. Just touch on the ground ever so quickly. I think they had 9 mils overnight, 5 this morning. It'd be interesting to see if the going does change and it ends up heavy all round. I mean, it's certainly going to make it a real test, isn't it, for the horses today? Each race, I suppose, is going to be a real test of stamina. But there's a few horses in there that obviously won't mind the ground. Some of them we're not quite sure on. I thought it'd be interesting to see how Lottymouth gets on, because obviously she is trying a new distance, and not ideal that it's on these conditions. So no, racing it'll be, you know, it'd be a tough one, I think, for those who are going through the form books. Might have to change your decisions, I think. Very much so. Yeah, we commented, didn't we, when we came in, that it's pretty squelchy underfoot, yeah. That's for sure. Soft, heavy in places it is currently at the moment, the going, considering the inundation of rain last night and the amount we're currently getting too. I wouldn't be at all surprised, Adele, if there is, throughout the afternoon, a change of going of some sort to heavy, because I'm not sure how much more this track can take on its current going description. No, I mean, as where we stood now, there is a little bit of standing water. I think once the jockeys are maybe ridden in the Supreme, maybe it might change after they've kind of given their say. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But I don't really think we can take that much more rain. Yeah, or much wind. As you can tell, there are strong gusts blowing me asunder here. You might have heard this morning, one of the breaking news stories, I suppose, about the Cheltenham Festival is that the Wednesday's cross-country might well be moved to Friday, given the fact that some of the course is quite waterlogged at the moment, and given the fact that it's still raining, it doesn't look particularly promising for tomorrow. There will be an inspection later today, I'm told, about that race, the cross-country. I'm more worried, to be honest, about the racing itself today, but hopefully we'll get through and the wind and the rain abates, because there's plenty to look forward to. But we've actually got a great day, because we're going to be inside very shortly. I hope you've skipped breakfast, because we're going to be seeing some food, I think, on offer by Michel Roux. Indeed, can't wait to have Michel Roux. We're going to be getting some lovely nourriture from him a little bit later on. And we're going to take a trip in an Aston Martin, I believe, as well. They're sponsoring Cheltenham for the first time this year, so looking forward to that too. Yeah, we're going to be looking at a different kind of horsepower, I suppose. Really looking forward to getting behind the steering wheel of one of those. Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, absolutely. Loads to look forward to over the next 2.5 hours or so. Now, time to introduce the latest member of our team. He'll be at the helm, at the rudder, for all 4 days, all 4 mornings this week for the Cheltenham Festival. It's a very good morning to the captain, Angus McNay.
Tom, Adele, thank you very much indeed. Hi everybody, welcome to the Racing TV studios for what's going to be a fabulous week at Prestbury Park. It's a bit damp there today. It's going to be attritional conditions, I think, throughout the day. But this week represents 20 years of coverage from Racing TV, and we are thoroughly looking forward to bringing you absolutely everything that happens at Cheltenham over the next 4 days. Today, this is what we can enjoy. And of course we get underway with the Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle. Over 2 miles we've got the Challenge Trophy, the Arkle. Next up, that's of course over 2 miles as well. Then we've got the Ultima Handicap Chase, Corrick Rambler, the winner of that last year, 3 miles and a furlong. The Unibet Champion Hurdle, no Constitution Hill, State Man, very short to win for the Willie Mullins team. 4:10, Willie Mullins holds the nap hand again with Lossiemouth in the Mayor's Hurdle, over 2 miles, 3 furlongs and 200 yards. We've got a handicap hurdle at 4:50 over 2 miles. That's the Boodles. And finally, we've got the Maureen Mullins National Hunt Challenge Cup, a Grade 2. Soft heavy in places officially, and we've just got one non-runner come through, and this is very recent, just come through in the last 5 minutes or so. It's in the 1:30, in the opening contest, the Supreme, number 4, Gold Dancer, is now out. Not sure if that is conditions related. If there are any more non-runners that come through the morning, we of course will let you know. And for many people, punters and connoisseurs alike, today is all about one man, this man, Willie Mullins. There is the great man, and I think that he'll be looking for 4 Grade 1s today. I don't think he'll expect anything less. Willie Mullins then, current total of 94 Cheltenham Festival winners, and he trained 6 out of today's 7 favourites. That's amazing, isn't it? Best record of 10 winners at a single festival in 2022. Reckon that record might go, and he's odds on to train more winners at this year's festival than Great Britain. Willie Mullins versus Great Britain, all on his own. He's some man.
I don't look at it. I don't look at the 100. I don't look at it. I look at the next one. Get one on the board. Take the pressure off. It's all about making sure your next runner is in good shape, and the results hopefully come right at some stage during the week. You know, we've gone to Cheltenham lots of years with no winner on the first day, and maybe no winner on the second day, and that's tough pressure for the type of team we bring. And people are saying, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong, and either a virus in the yard or whatever. You know, and we looked through the results, and you might have been unlucky once, but basically the horses weren't good enough. Just possibly the area of expectation from bookmakers and punters about our team going across, and maybe a lot of our horses are false prices. I don't go much into bookmaking or betting or the prices of the horses, you know, so that could be an account why we've so many favourites. You know, lots of people think, Willie's going to clean up there, and rather than how well the horses are in the race, our horses probably start a lot shorter than maybe they should. But then the bookmakers drive bigger cars than I do, so they have it.
And do you think that you have as strong a team going this year at this point as you
I think so.
Have?
I mean, I can never sort of go back and think what were our, because there's just such across the board amount of horses there with different chances in different races, and I don't know. I imagine people like yourself will say, you know, you probably just go back in the pre-Cheltenham betting, you know, 12 favourites versus, I think there's 12 favourites again this year or something, is there?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so it's more or less the same. We go there with a chance in the Gold Cup and in the Champion Hurdle and the Champion Chase. You know, they're always great races to have horses that are competitive in, and then after that you just have to run the race.
Yes, the Mullins juggernaut is well and truly rolled into town. As promised, Dan Barber joins me to go through all the action here on day one. And Dan, that's the only place we can start. Welcome along. Are we about to see a demolition job here at Presbury Park, the likes of which we've never seen at this place before?
Yeah, there's almost scope for a few specials here, aren't there? There's certainly a scope for Mullins versus Britain. There's Mullins versus the world pretty much, because it has, not a Mullins benefit, that would be stretching it, but this level of domination, certainly in my lifetime, is absolutely unprecedented. To have so many short price favourites for so many races. He's got the jolly, or basically the jolly, for 6 of the 7 races on the opening day. It's pretty unparalleled, this, and we've got this overall thing as well. I wonder what your views are about nearly all of them dressing for the weather and wearing a hood.
It's a really strange move, that, on the face of things, isn't it? Horses who've never worn that headgear before, and left, right and centre, the hoods are going on. I was asking Ruby yesterday, have they gone and bought a job lot of them? Have they got enough to cover them all? But it sounds like they have. They've got all the angles covered, as you expect.
Yeah, but you go back to the olden days when, before hoods were sort of, you know...
De rigueur.
De rigueur, yeah, the new fashion. Some people would say that you put a tongue tie on just as because it does no harm, and maybe there's just an element of that in case they boil over. We know that they don't declare the reds, or they'll declare them to the stewards and they'll wear them, but not wear them to post or wear them in the race. They'll just wear them in the paddock. So that's a pretty standard thing for a lot of horses that can be keyed up. But it definitely took me aback that this feels like a concerted move. That whether he feels like it's just a precaution, it does no harm, maybe, but it's supposed to calm horses, isn't it? And this is the place where normally you want them to be revved up as much as you can.
That's true. He's been a great fan of earplugs over the years, hasn't he, as well, Willie Mullins? So we'll keep a close eye on that. How much of a leveler do you think the ground is going to be today, Dan? I've been out on the track there, and it is pretty boggy underfoot there. Will that compromise some of the Mullins' chances and perhaps bring more of the less heralded names into play?
Yeah, I'd say with State Man it wouldn't be as much of a concern. He seems so dependable and versatile. It doesn't really matter to him, does it? But I think you could certainly go to the mares race, and I think that is the most significant aspect for the whole card, really, as to what it will do. Because Lossiemouth has decided, or Connected Lossiemouth decided that they don't want to try the champion at this stage. But the champion's over 2 miles and the mares is over 2.5. I guess in their mind was, oh, it's always good to soft on the first day. On the numbers, as far as time form assess the go in, it's only been soft 5 times this century for the Supreme in 24, 23 run-ins. So conditions will potentially be bordering on heavy by the first race, which is almost unheard of. So it's not going to be maybe the cakewalk that it should be on the form book. She's the best mare, she'd be a worthy contender in a champion hurdle. But if a couple of the other jockeys and connections have a bit of sense about them, they'll know that that's a potential chink in her armour, and they'll try and ride their horses, the staying types, to expose that. And that's the way I'd be reading that race at the moment anyway.
Today is the day for the purist, isn't it? 4 Grade 1s, rat-tat-tat. Everybody loves the Tuesday at Cheltenham Festival. Do you think it's up to scratch with the last few years in comparison?
Well, we can't ignore the absentees, can we? In one particularly big one, potentially, in my opinion, is the best hurdler I've seen in my lifetime. I don't want to speak for the 70s and the 60s because people get rather riled, don't they, if you're accused of recency bias. But we're not going to see Constitution Hill, who, to put his ability in perspective, State Man has lost only once when completing since joining Mullins, and that was a 9-length thrashing by Constitution Hill. So we are missing the star of the game, the star of the sport in many ways. State Man, a really able deputy, be a good champion hurdler in most renewals, wouldn't he? But of course Constitution Hill isn't the only one. There are a few names that the likes of Allaho, a lot of them are Mullins trained.
Someone
and he's
came
still
up with a
dominant.
list, didn't they? The Willie Mullins horses who aren't going to Cheltenham would almost make an incredible stable for anyone in their own right, wouldn't
yeah,
it?
Absolutely. The list is quite staggering that he can still be so dominant, favourite to beat Britain on his own in terms of the rankings at the end of the week, yet he's missing 5 horses that would be the best animal in pretty much any other stable. Madness.
It is staggering, isn't it? Well, we're all set up beautifully ahead of day 1 here. As you're well aware at this stage, we have had plenty of rain, though, and as Dan alluded to there, conditions are going to be pretty testing here. We'll be back with you very shortly indeed, but now we're going to rejoin Tom.
Welcome back to the track, and I've been joined by John Pullen, Clerk of the course here. Now, John, I can imagine your dreams and hopes leading up to the Cheltenham Festival this year. The rain and wind we've had over the last 24 hours, 48 hours isn't what you hoped for.
No, certainly not. You know, we've, as everyone's well aware, we've had this very wet winter, which has you know, provided some challenges throughout the winter for the team to get ready for today and the start of the festival. You know, earlier on in the week we looked dry yesterday, which we were, and the forecast for today, you know, 48 hours ago was for just 1 millimetre. We're now up to 11, sort of overnight and through the morning, and we still could get another sort of 2 or 3. There's another band that might move through sort of 11 o'clock-ish, so we'll see what that delivers. This afternoon is looking slightly better. We might get a light shower or 2, but nothing too measurable this afternoon. So hopefully once we've got to lunchtime, we're through the worst of it.
OK, in terms of the current going description then, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so at the moment we're soft heavy in places on both old and new course, but in all likelihood, we're about to go out for our pre-race walk. I can see us probably switching that or even going to heavy all over. 11 mil this morning, it just won't have the time to get through the profile. So I wouldn't be surprised if we conclude in an hour or two that we're heavy.
And do you think you might make that assessment before the first race then?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, we'll do a pre-race walk and make that decision.
Because I have to say, I stayed in the vicinity last night and I couldn't believe the amount of rain that fell all through the night. It wasn't just at one point or certain points, it was pretty much constant.
It was, yes. As I say, a change late yesterday in the forecast. My update yesterday morning was suggesting 2 to 4 mil. And that had increased from the day before, but I got a forecast just before I left last night, which painted a gloomier picture, which has played out through the night and this morning.
Okay, and in terms of the cross-country chase, that is due to run tomorrow, looking unlikely at the moment?
Yes, certainly at the moment. We're heavy, soft in places, and there is a little bit of waterlogging on the track at the moment. We only race on it 3 times, and it hasn't had the same level of investment in drainage as both old and new courses, which do drain very well. And so it's just sitting on there a little bit at the moment. We'll do all we can. We've started moving some rail to get around the worst of it. We started that process actually earlier in the week, sort of conscious that it was pretty testing out there. We'll do all we can to get it on tomorrow. But if not, we're sort of currently just liaising with the BHA about the possibility of moving the race to Friday if we don't achieve that tomorrow.
Okay, and I suppose if the race doesn't run tomorrow, there'll be quite a sizable gap in between the races either side of it, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. So we're also looking at race times for tomorrow. So in the event that we abandon the cross country, which we'll look at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, then we'll just jig the times for the first races tomorrow. Just so that we haven't got that big gap where the cross-country would have been. Okay,
and depending on the amount of rain we get forecast for the rest of the day and through the night too, in terms of tomorrow's racing, is there any doubt in your mind that abandonment wouldn't be on the table for you? Are you confident of that at the moment?
Yeah, no, certainly with what we're seeing at the moment, no, that's not a concern. Clearly, a race day on it is going to open it up, but the forecast is dry from later on today and dry tomorrow as well, so that will help. It will be pretty testing tomorrow, but we'll also look at what we can do as far as hurdle movement and rail movement overnight, just to try and get them off what will be the worst of the ground from today. Okay, and it's quite windy at the moment. I'm led to believe that we're due some pretty high winds tomorrow too. Yes, it's breezy. Nothing of any huge concern, but a little bit breezy. But as long as it's not bringing any more rain, then that might help. It's okay. It's nothing that we're too concerned about from a wind point of view. Okay, good stuff, John. Thank you very much for your time. I hope, as much as you can enjoy the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you to Tom and John with that going update at Cheltenham. We'll keep across what's happening as far as the weather is concerned and the going prior to the opening race. Now, you may well have heard presenters and pundits referring to race IQ data here on Racing TV. You may not have done. You may be completely new to this particular concept. Well, we have access to a race IQ database, and we can look back at lots of performances from very different angles. I've put together a few things for you to have a look at, just to introduce you to the data. They're not Cheltenham specific, they refer to other races, but they'll give you a flavour of what we can do with the race IQ data. I'm going to take you to the Betfair Chase at Ascot. You will remember that Pic D'Orhy won this race and beat L'Homme Presse. Now, if we go into the Race IQ database, this is the first thing we see when we go to the race. And you see you could click on race sectionals for this particular contest, runner individual sectionals for each furlong, the full sectionals for the race, which include the finishing speed percentage, i.e. how fast the horses finished the race over the final 4 furlongs compared to the earlier part of the race. And you can look at jumping stats as well, lengths gained jumping. And also you can break those lengths down to individual fences. I wanted to show this race because this is a case of where the data tells you something different to your eye. Pic D'Orhy beat L'Homme Presse, 5.5 lengths between them. Look at this, an evenly run race, both of them finishing just over 2% quicker in the final 4 furlongs than they ran the rest of the race, as evidenced by the FSP. Now, it was commonly held that Pic D'Orhy jumped brilliantly, jumped superbly, and this narrative gathered momentum to say that he never touched a twig and all those kind of things. But if we look further at the Race IQ data, this is where it can tell us and paint a different picture. Look at Pic D'Orhy there, in the yellow line. Okay, lengths gained jumping on the left, the number of jumps, 17 of them in total, along the bottom axis. You can see that he jumped really well early on. Look at the graph going up the yellow line, jumping well, gaining lengths, gaining, and then he maintained that through the top of that curve. But then look at the dip. He starts to drop down as he gets to round about the 11th fence. He doesn't jump well. 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. He certainly doesn't jump as well as he did in the previous part of the race. So the race IQ data can bring us a graph like that, and it can tell us the true picture of how a horse jumped, rather than our eyes perhaps sometimes deceiving us. If we want to see on the database how well a horse has jumped, well, what we can do is we can move on and we can have a look at lengths gained, and we can put a number to it. So I'll take you to the Grand National Trial at Haydock on the same day. This is what a good round of jumping looks like. Yeah, man. Now, he's the one that should get all the plaudits for his jumping on this particular day, because as you can see in that column, lengths gained jumping, he gained 14.67 lengths over his rivals. My Silver Lining jumped well. Remember, they had a pretty good battle up the home straight. 3.86 he gained, and the rest of them a bit indifferent in terms of their jumping. But that's what really good jumping looks like, and that's what the data can bring to us. Now, you may well say to yourself, right now, you might say, well, of course he jumped best because he won the race. That is not always the case, and we can highlight that again through the data. So let's go to the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup and have a look at Galopin des Champs. Now, we'll look at lengths gained jumping again here, and this is what the data said. So, he didn't jump well. He jumped poorly. He lost 3.14 lengths. But Fast or Slow was much better. He gained 8.91. But despite that, Galopin still beat him. So, you can't belong to a camp that says the best jumper in the race always wins. If that's the case, Fast or Slow would have won. But no, Galopin's engine and class got him through despite essentially a poor round of jumping. So we really can delve deep and analyse how horses jump, and we can look at the miles per hour that they gain going into fences and they lose perhaps when they come out of the fences. So we've also got a speed monitor on them, as well as a length gain monitor. Look, this is a flat race. I just wanted to show you this because, okay, the flat season's not far away, and this is what sectionals can do for you. This is Notable Speech on his debut in a slowly run race. Look at the sectionals here: 1691, 1246, 1263. That's the top line. And the number in the brackets is where he was in the race: 6th, 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 6th. A steadily run race, he's in 6th place. But look at the 6th furlong, 11.86, and he moved into 5th. And then suddenly, a rapid acceleration from 11.86 to 10.95 that shot him from 5th to 3rd, and then an 11.13 in that final column that shot him from 3rd to 1st. And that was his debut. He joined the sub-11 club in doing that 10.95, and he won next time out as well. And that could be predicated by what he achieved here on debut, which you can find in the Race IQ data. And we hope to bring this data alive for you this week. I'll be having a look at the Sky Bet Supreme a little bit later on and look at some jumping data and some sectional data as far as that is concerned. And it throws up some very interesting stuff. The big race of the day is the Champion Hurdle.
We've got to get him there. That path is full of mines and potholes and goodness knows what, and everything has to go right.
To confirm the news that came through about an hour and a half ago that Constitution Hill will not be defending his crown in the Champion Hurdle.
Constitution Hill is out of the Champion Hurdle.
You've got to feel sorry for the Henderson team, but what an opportunity for the rest of the field.
Who do you fancy now? I think all eyes would have to be on Stateman.
This could be Stateman's year.
Stateman dominating successive Unibet Borgianas for Paul Townend and Willie Mullins. The Madison has the same rate to it as last year. A State Man follows up for Paul Townend and Willie Mullins. State Man pouring it on from Bob Ollinger on 30 past, but it is State Man putting this race to bed.
I think he's stronger, taking his races better. I think he's a stronger individual, more mature.
What an ideal opportunity this could prove to be for State Man to win a champion hurdle in the absence of Constitution Hill. He is a long odds on to oblige here this afternoon, and conditions should not be necessarily a problem for him. Willie Mullins trains in, Paul Townend will be on board, and I think he's going to be pretty tough to beat. Let's have a look at the market and see how it stands at the moment. Well, he's 2 to 5. It's 5 to 1 Irish Point. Iberico Lord is 10s, 20s in the Meehan Lion. Zarak the Brave 22 to 1, 33 is Colonel Mustard. Not so sleepy 33s, and it's 40 to 1. Lucia. He's got a big engine. He doesn't win his races by jumping. For example, when he won last time, took the Irish champion hurdle, he lost over a length in the jumping stakes. So it's not his jumping that wins him races, it's his big engine, and he's likely to be very hard to beat, although he was well beaten last year.
Angus, thank you. And we're going to have a look back at last year's champion hurdle and discuss the performance of State Man. No Constitution Hill for him to worry about today. Of course, not so sleepy. Dan was involved here as well. But I want to concentrate on State Man's performance here. And I've heard Paul Townend make the point a few times since this race that he actually wasn't far off being all out to hold Zana here for second. Now, there was only 4 lengths between them, and I know it doesn't necessarily look that way from his body language, but did State Man underperform in your opinion?
He might well have done. I think if you judge it on the bare form, beating Zana here by that far, you could be fairly confident that he wasn't at his very best. Now, we've heard that's been a rumour for a while, hasn't it? Or the belief has been that Paul feels that he's better now, or was better even last year, than he was able to show on the day. He was put in his place by Constitution Hill, did the effort of trying to go with Constitution Hill, take something of a toll on him. He certainly doesn't look like getting beaten by 10 lengths for a lot of the latter stages from the home turn. So I think there's possibly some merit to it, and the difficulty in rating him is because he basically beats what he has to in his homeland. Oh, his homeland's actually France, isn't it? On Irish soil.
Such a perfectionist.
Yeah, on Irish soil. It's often a case of just passing the test and no more than that. There's no need to be more sparkling than that. And as we so often see with these horses, they raise the game in a better level of competition. But he's the Constitution Hill of 2024. He's the one who the others will be trying to aim at. But he's such an uncomplicated, likeable horse. He's basically forced his stablemate in Pere Passe, who looked a really viable champion hurdle live wire at the start of the season. He's forced him completely out of the picture because he kept him at arm's length at Christmas, and then at the DRF, the disastrous change of tactics on Imperi Pass, it's meant that that horse isn't even going to have a crack at a race that he looked like he might be really ready for when he won the 2.5 miler here last season. So he's clearly the one to beat. It's about his rating being better than the others, his level of ability being better than the others, but it's also the metronomic way that he performs every time he comes to the track. So it's really hard to find a hole in him.
Okay, his main rival, according to the betting today, is a horse who I think could well have run in this race even at Constitution Hill turned up, and his name is Irish Point. He's trained by Gordon Elliott, and Dan, it's an unorthodox, I was going to say warm-up for this. It wasn't a warm-up for it by any stretch, but his last run was a win in a 3-mile hurdle race, which is unorthodox,
yeah,
I suppose, for a champion hurdle contender. How viable a candidate is he?
I think he should have gone for the other race, frankly. I mean, to be so impressive on your first run over a staying trip as he was, you go back to that Mersey Novices hurdle of last season, that form reads really well. That was 2.5 miles. He did push Marine Nationale close, obviously, as a novice in that thrilling finish before Marine Nationale was put away and won the Supreme. But I thought this was almost like the complete performance. And a lot of people were saying, presumably because they had doubts about his stamina going in, that, oh, well, this didn't prove his stamina just because they went so slowly. But that horse is motoring up the running. I sort of feel from their perspective, I can see why they've done it. They've split their big guns.
Yeah.
They're having a crack, a lively chance in the stayers in Chihupu, and a 5-to-1 shot in the champion hurdle, but a much harder favourite to beat in the champion hurdle, and they'd probably been about evens coupled the Robco pair, had they have lined up for the Stayers hurdle instead. So I think mathematically it feels like the wrong move, but I can see why, because they're spreading them. But I'd be doubtful, even on really testing ground, whether he's sharp enough to trouble something like a horse like Stateman or even a couple of the other more natural 2-milers.
Certainly adds a bit of extra interest to today's race, no question about that. And so too does the supplementary entry, Iberico Lord, the winner of the Betfair hurdle at Newbury last time. And this was, I thought, Dan, an ultra confident ride from Nico de Bonville, who never looked panicked at any stage, even though he had a lot of ground to make up to get to the leaders at one point. We've seen the form boosted already. He's got a lot to find on the figures, but is it that straightforward, do you feel?
I think it's quite notable in itself, and it'd echo my belief in this horse that they're happy to supplement him. I don't think it's just a case of...
We're going to have a look at the Greatwood hurdle.
I don't think it's just a case of JP wanting a runner in a champion hurdle. I do think he's a horse of serious ability, and when he's had testing ground, he's won probably the 2 biggest and strongest 2-mile handicap hurdles run on British soil of the campaign, and I thought he's been so impressive on both occasions. About Lucia this day, was really happy with how things were going. Of course, Lucia runs in the race too. I thought this was, well, I say I couldn't see her beat. I thought she was swinging all over them entering the straight. But once Iberico Lord gets some running room and gets into full stride, I know it's a handicap off a mark in the high 120s, but it was still a really impressive performance. Lookaway has had some really solid form. He's a real toughie, and Iberico Lord has run him down. He's a really strong running 2-miler, this horse. He's definitely raised his game since. He had the slight setback on the track at Ascot in between. I don't think the ground was in his favour. It was a mess of a race. But I agree with you. I thought that was a performance of a graded horse in the Betfair hurdle. For Nico to basically be taking a pull he was 14th at the third last in a Betfair hurdle. Loda soon makes his move round the outside, gets the jump on him, and even then, Nico is pretty confident, it seems, that he's got him covered. You could rate him value for at least double, I thought, over the winning margin. I definitely think he is a graded hurdler in the making. Whether he adapts to a more tactical race might be the doubt, because he's been doing it in these well-run big field handicaps, but he will not be out of place in a race like this. And of course, the better for him is the fact that we've had a lot of rain overnight as well.
Very much so. We've seen Godante boost the form by winning the Imperial Cup of both those races, actually, the Greatwood and the Betfair hurdle. How important is it, though, for anyone who's thinking of having a few quid on Iberico Lord today, Dan, how big a run do they want to see from the horse in the first, Jericho de Repene, just to reassure them, I suppose, about the Henderson form?
Yeah, I don't think we should make light of the fact that, well, there's 2 things for me. The stable have had 1 runner in 10 days, was way below par yesterday at Plumpton. They had a period, I think it was the 21st and the 24th, where they had 6 of 7 horses pulled up. Now, they may well have been extenuating circumstances, but that is extremely rare for any stable to have that number of horses in such a short space of time not completing the race, particularly a stable of the magnitude of Nicky Henderson. I think it's a handful of winners since the start of February. It's hard to escape the conclusion that it isn't a yard that's where well-being is absolutely flourishing. And obviously we've lost Constitution Hill with a respiratory problem, or however it wants to be termed. So I don't think we can ignore that. And you're right, all eyes will be on Jericho de Repene, who will go on to discuss him in more depth. But this is a horse who, before he even ran, was made favourite for a Supreme. He's won all 3 starts and been impressive on all 3 of them. And he finds himself now, thanks to Mullins et al., that he's now 8-1 or so for the race. But he is a key horse today. It's a small sample size. We'll be judging him on 1. There will be, won't there? There'll be a lot of knee-jerk reactions. Oh, he's not run his race. The stable's horses must be wrong again. If he runs really well, people will be taking it as a positive that it bodes well for the likes of Iberico Lord and the other big guns that Henderson's running the race. But I suspect nobody will be more nervous than Nicky himself when it comes to the performance of their novice in the first.
No doubt, as Dan said, all eyes on Jericho de Repene in that opener. We'll go into that one in more detail in due course. But sticking with the feature for now, not so sleepy, Dan, certainly warrants a mention. We saw him finishing 5th in last year's champion. He's had a big day already this season. This is it at Sandown, winning the rearranged fighting 5th hurdle, where of course he didn't have to beat Constitution Hill, but he still went out and got the job done. Marvellous horse, worthy of his place in the field, and again he'll cope with the conditions, won't he?
Conditions will be fine for him. He was the rag of the field this day to beat 2 who were going for the mare's hurdle instead of a champion hurdle, and Goshen, who, bless him, bounced back to some form to win over fences at Exeter the other day. But this was a It was a Grade 1 in name only, wasn't it, really? It wasn't a Grade 1 calibre race. I think you can actually track the depth of the champion hurdles through him, because this will be his 5th attempt in a champion hurdle. How's about this for SPs for the previous 4? 33s, 125s twice, and 150 to 1 last year. He's a significantly shorter price on his 5th go at champion hurdle. That's not a reflection of a horse who's suddenly miles better than ever. It's a reflection of the fact that we are dealing with a much weaker race than normal.
I'm sure win, lose or draw, he'll give his running. He usually does, doesn't he? Not so sleepy. Best of luck to his connections. Time for final thoughts then, Dan. Is it Stateman's race to lose, to sum up?
It is. From a betting perspective, you can always take him out of the equation by looking at the without markets. I'd be against Irish Point in that. It'll be a short price to win it. He's half the price of the 3rd in. I like Iberico Lord. I think he's got a lot of ability. Conditions will be absolutely perfect. But again, I'm sure mine, because we're easily swayed, my confidence in that will be affected somewhat by what happens in the opener.
For what it's worth, I agree. You've got to feel for anybody who had a few quid on Iberico Lord for the county, haven't you?
Yeah,
it must have been some good thing for that if they think he'll go close to the champion.
The first thing I thought, given on the back of the shunter doing the double Kelso and Cheltenham Festival and then being bought by JP, I thought JP might cut out the middleman this time and try and achieve that. Instead, it was under control, who was ended up taking out. It has just been a really difficult period, hasn't it, for a stable that they're not really used to these sort of blemishes.
OK, that is our feature event on day 1 of the festival here at Cheltenham, the Unibet Champion Hurdle at 3:30.
And one contender for the champion hurdle is Not So Sleepy, who won the rearranged Fighting 5th at Sandown last time up. He was 5th in the champion hurdle last year. I wonder if his trainer Hughie Morrison thinks he can do a bit better this time around.
He's totally unique. He's not very big. He's 450 kilos, which is light for a jumper. Not particularly heavy for a gelding either. He's just a rubber ball. Yeah, you look at him and you think, he looks like a sprinter, close coupled, strong, deep girth. But, you know, he's just got something about him which he just loves to fight, really.
Yeah. You said after Sandown, with the rescheduled Fighting 5th, that is a horse that you've really enjoyed the challenge with. You like the fun, the unusual nature of the way that you can train him, that he sort of keeps everyone thinking. Has he been a real satisfying stage of your career to see him do what he does year after year?
Yeah, because he's, of course, there's you know, lots of disappointments along the road. You know, he won a Derby trial, admittedly as a gelding. He won the D Stakes in 2015, and then we ran him at Ascot, firm ground, so no thanks. You know, we went to Germany once, and it was all set up, heavy ground at Hamburg, and then they abandoned the day, so he then ran on fast ground. And, you know, he had some fairly fallow years at sort of 4 and 5, but he's always sort of kept something back, I think.
And his jumping is what I always think doesn't really get the respect that it should do. He's very quick, he's very nimble. I remember thinking when he dead heated with Epatante, who was always given the accolades of being a very fine jumper, that he was doing exactly that as well. Do you think he doesn't get the credit he deserves for the quality he possesses over jumps?
Oh, of course he never will, because he always wins in the wrong conditions, doesn't he? He wins on heavy ground and on the big stage at Cheltenham. You know, he's never run to his best at Cheltenham, I'm sure of that. He's run very well, but he's never run to his best, because somehow we've always struggled at this time of year to get him in the top form. Maybe because he's had a long year, but you know, maybe in a couple of weeks' time on heavy ground, who knows, he might turn up age 12.
He's been 5th in the last 3 champion hurdles, if my memory serves me right. What have you learned going through each time? Because it feels like you're doing something a little bit different with him this time. Is it because of his age, or is that because of what you've learned over the last few years? I
think we've learned that he, like a lot of us, if we overdo ourselves as we get older, we don't bounce back quite as quickly. And he obviously runs best fresh. Though he's always been a struggle to get, as I said, to get to Cheltenham in tip-top condition. So, you know, we need a fair wind over the next couple of weeks. We put the pressure on him, we get him schooling. He always does something like knock himself the week before or something. But, you know, he's still got there, I'd say 90%, and still run well. So we just hope that we can get in there. If you know, 100% age 12 would be a surprise, I suppose.
Jess Stafford talking to Hugh Morrison about the chances of Not So Sleepy. in the champion hurdle this afternoon. Let's go back to the track now and rejoin Tom and Adele.
Well, I cannot tell you how much pleasure it gives me to have made our way from the cold and the wind into the warmth here at Chez Roux. Adele and I have been joined by Michel Roux himself and also Neil Phillips. I have to say, with the assortments of lovely delicacies before our eyes here, my nose buds are certainly a tingling. What a treat. Michel, thank you very much for having us. And also, I imagine, a bit of a treat for you having a place here at the Cheltenham Festival.
Absolutely, yes. It's a shame I couldn't make the weather any better, but yes. No, it's always a fabulous, fabulous week here. Can't wait to get stuck in today.
Absolutely, and stuck in we shall be doing in a few moments' time, because Neil, some of the meals or the food we've got here is pretty sensational, isn't it?
Well, it is sensational, and one of the things that I think is all the planning that goes on behind the scenes, Tom, because Michel and the team, you've been tasting months ago, and actually the important thing to think is about how does a Chez Roux experience look at Cheltenham, say to Epsom, the colours of the dishes, what's on the dishes there. So that is what I love, is the preparation, the background. But look at the presentation. I mean, Adele, look, you can't wait, can you?
I was wondering, how do you decide on what menu to put together? Because I can imagine it must be hard when you're transitioning from like winter food into spring. Has it been quite difficult?
Not difficult because, well, we're used to it, but it is exactly that. I mean, it's cold here. It's always cold at Cheltenham Festival, isn't it? And there's one particular dish that it's the signature dish of Chez Roux at Cheltenham. It is the French onion soup. And on a weather like this, yes, that's what you want. A bowl of just goodness and warming, and then for dessert, this fella here that you've got the sticky toffee pudding served piping hot with the caramel sauce on top, and that's got an apple in there as well.
You're winning, Adele.
I think I've definitely got the best dish. I'm not going to lie.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, I was just saying yesterday, because we always do a soft opening on the Monday of the festival. So if the trainers come along, Willie Mullins always likes to come here. He loves coming here. He loves it. I mean, he loves to leave. He really enjoys the whole experience. But it was interesting. Yes, I went to one time. They said the French onion soup. We love it. We absolutely love it. So it's great. It's always on the menu. But I'm interested as well, is because it's interesting with you, Tom. Your dad as well. Chef as well, famous chef Stephen Bull.
Well, I couldn't believe it because I spoke to Michel just before we came on here, and Michel was singing my dad's praises. I was kind of thinking, this culinary great from one of the greatest institutions from Le Gavroche is talking about my dad and saying some very nice things about him too. So thanks for that.
Absolutely, and please, pass on my warmest regards. I have very fond memories. I dined at your dad's restaurant twice. It's just brilliant. And what I must say about your dad as well, he was a great mentor. There were some fantastic chefs that trained in your dad's kitchens. So, yeah.
I think he had Tom Kerridge and Richard Corrigan, a few people like that under his wing. So they've not done too bad, I suppose.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Can you cook?
I can. Emphasis on the can.
He can eat though. He can eat.
Very much so. Yeah. Looking forward to this in particular. I wanted to touch too, Michel, on Le Gavroche, because obviously it was sad for everyone really to see it close, but at the same time it's been the most wonderful culinary institution for so long, so many years, and you must take great pride in all the memories you've kind of gained over those decades.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? It's memories. It's and Gavroche meant so much to so many people, and none more so than the staff and myself. It's been rather odd and peculiar, not working every night.
I can imagine.
But it means I can concentrate on other things, including Cheltenham.
What's the atmosphere like once your clients start to arrive? Do you start to build up?
Yeah, I mean, come back in about half an hour and this place will be buzzing. It's incredible.
Do you get the nerves still with this kind of event?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But that's good. That you're alive.
Well, I saw you had an enormous battalion of waiters and waitresses at your beck and call. So you must feel a bit like an army commander overseeing your military troops. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah, let's just hope it's not a Waterloo, eh?
Well, everybody's on the button here, I tell you.
Yeah, we haven't even had a drink yet.
I mean, talking with some racing tips either. But actually, Michel, just in terms of because Adele touched on this, just in all the background, the preparation. So talk us through what we've got in front of us here, because we've got obviously great main courses here as well as great desserts.
Yeah, so you've got the belly of pork. There's a cheek of pork there as well, slow cooked. A really lovely sauce to go with it, quite sticky and sweet, which works so well with pork. And just a medley of carrots there to go with it. I've got the venison here, roast loin of venison, beetroot. Again, winter. You know, we've got to think winter, and a proper red wine sauce to go with it, which will go beautifully with the red wine. You've got the sticky toffee, almost a classic there with the, but I've got an apple in there too. And you have the spiced apple, I think it is. Yes, again, very, very seasonal with a cider sorbet.
Do you know what? I'm really pleased that I got this one for a number of reasons, but most importantly, I'm a Herefordshire boy, so I'm from cider country. So to have a bit of spiced apple, a bit of cider, that's right up my street, I have to say.
I love that. I'm going to have a taste. I can't.
We're going to have a little dig.
Yeah, come on, we've got to go.
Yeah.
We're going to go. But actually, just whatever. Just in terms of Michelle, the wines here as well, because you have your wines here too, don't we? With the white and the red here, your whole
That is so nice.
breakfast.
That's your second breakfast, isn't it? I think, Michelle, yeah.
This is
Glad I
great,
skipped
isn't
breakfast.
I love my job.
yeah, with a hashtag. Yeah, but the whole thing as well with your relationship with Michel Saputi and his daughter as well. So just talk about that briefly as well.
Yeah. Well, they're long-standing friends of the family, friends of dad and uncle as well. So we go back a long, long way, and we've had a joint forces, as it were, collaboration of wines. So yes, the red and the white are from Chapoutier.
And this is down in southern France, so it's great. It's just
Rhone Valley, love the wines.
Yeah, I love the wines from Rhone Valley. I've just tasted the red actually. You just have a taste of the white because it's Adele, because it's but I love the spiciness, but it's not too weighty on the red, is it? And that's what's really great for a day like today.
Really perfect with the venison.
Yeah. How long do you spend on your wine pairings? This is quite a difficult thing to do, to match up the perfect wine to the perfect meal.
Yes, it is. When we're used to, I've got to think in past, haven't I? Gavroche is now closed, past tense. We used to spend a lot of time actually with the sommeliers and the whole team going through the menu and devising the right wine choice for the wine flight. And it's not that easy, because you want to be something a little bit different sometimes and something that's going to stand out. It's
interesting stuff.
It's hard work.
I can imagine. Yeah, hard work too, picking winners. But luckily, Neil Phillips is here.
Surely you've got some good ones.
We've been told this is the year for you, Neil.
Michelle, I've told you before.
You said you've been working really hard on your tips.
I've worked really harder than ever. Are you inspired by that, Michelle?
Go on, give me a winner.
I'm a bit worried about the ground now, but I have, and not just because of the name. Not just because of the name, Chianti Classico, running in the Ultima. I followed him as a hurdler. Come on, Adele, I don't think that's a bad idea. Adele's nodding at me.
I'm not about the ground.
I'm worried about the ground now. Trelawney, but running actually for Kim Bailey as well. But Chianti Classico. But maybe now, it's difficult. So that's where I was going, but I'm worried about the rain now.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
But I'm going to tell you where I'm going to go for. Actually running in the Boodles, because we know... I'm going to go for Harsh, because Harsh will like soft going.
There you go, Michelle. A few winners for you.
Adele, come on. Who do you fancy?
Oh, I think.
Now with the ground.
It's a hard one, but I'd really love to see State Man win. To be honest with you, I said to you earlier, I seen a picture of him yesterday on social media, and he looked $1 million. He won't mind the ground at all. So I know he's not much of a price, but you never know with the ground changing, it might just push him out ever so slightly.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, Adele. Thanks, Neil, as well. Michelle, and thank you so much too. Hope the next 4 days goes swimmingly for you, and I hope you can enjoy the rest of this meal in a bit of peace once we're gone.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. And cheers to everyone at home as well.
Cheers to you guys. Yeah, a sumptuous breakfast there for Tom and Adele. We are now going to concentrate on the Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle. I explained a little bit earlier on in the show what we can do with Race IQ data. So let's just apply it to three of the horses who are at the forefront of the market for the Sky Bet Supreme. We'll start with Tully Hill and just have a look at what he did last time out at Punchestown. Now, I think the thing to note about him is that he's a careful jumper. He's not a spectacular jumper. He's not a particularly good jumper either. He's in front here. You can see there. He's just a little bit sticky at that particular hurdle, and he's not very good at all throughout the race. The 5th hurdle and the 6th hurdle, he lost 1.23 lengths and then 0.89 lengths as well at those 2 individual hurdles. He just gets in close and he just clips the top of a lot of his hurdles. And bear in mind, they're not going particularly quick at this stage of the race. And I think he's just going to have to brush his jumping up if he's going to be able to compete in a Supreme. You look at his overall figures at the end of the race, and he wasn't particularly good overall compared to the runner-up. See him here, he's not too bad there, but again he flicks through the top. He got an easy lead, he got his own way out in front, yet he still didn't jump particularly well. He's turning into the home straight now, and the second last, the 8th fence, his 8th hurdle, he's going to lose a lot of speed at this. This is the second last. He loses 1.37 lengths, and he'll lose over 7 miles an hour, according to the Race IQ data. So although he jumps some of his hurdles okay, he loses speed at them, and that's what tells me that he's just careful at those hurdles, not spectacular. He's got a big engine. He clears right away in the home straight here, but his jumping leaves a little bit to be desired. Good enough there at the last. That was his best jump of the race overall, but he was pretty sticky at some of his others, and he loses ground even if he appears to jump reasonably well. So I think I put him down as being a careful jumper who perhaps loses a bit more speed than he should when he's going over his hurdles. Here's his overall profile for that particular race. He lost 1.08 lengths throughout the contest cumulatively. What about no flies on him, the runner-up? Well, look how much better he was. He gained 5 lengths throughout the race. Now, his engine wasn't good enough for him to trouble Tully Hill, but I think the point I would like to make is that this horse, Tully Hill, needs to brush up his jumping a little bit if he is going to win a Supreme. It's possible that he could. OK, let's move on. We'll have a look at stable companion, Mystical Power now, and just have a look at this horse's jumping ability and his speed as well, which I think is something that's important. He's in the JP McManus colours, the white cap towards the back. And you can see there, the 4th last hurdle, he gained 0.34 lengths. So we were dealing in negative figures for Tully Hill, by and large, but we're dealing in positive figures for him. By no means spectacular at all at his hurdles, but a bit more efficient through the race. He's also pretty good at the next as well. The 3rd last, he gains 0.32 lengths at this one, so pretty efficient. A steadily run race, it turned into a bit of a dash. He's okay over that, not too bad, and he will gain good meters, good lengths at the last, 2.27 lengths when it came to the last. There's his 0.04 lengths. He's just a bit of a scruffy jump, but he still gained a little bit of ground. And now this is where his speed's going to come into play. I think that's his major asset. He's got loads of speed, and we'll compare his speed in a moment with Tully Hill's. This jump at the last was good, though. This is a very good jump. This is a better jump at the last than Tully Hill managed to put in his whole round of jumping here at Punchestown. He gained 2.27 lengths jumping this hurdle, whilst perhaps at maximum speed, you would say, coming down to the last. Let's have a look at this. Pretty good. Got in a bit close, but he's quickly away again. And in terms of losing speed, he loses nowhere near as much speed at his hurdles than Tully Hill does. And he won pretty comfortably there, didn't he? He won very nicely indeed. So what about his speed? How fast is he and how fast is Tully Hill? Well, we can just have a look at their top speeds in both of those races. And you'll see that, well, Tully Hill's not as fast as Mystical Power. Here we go. Tully Hill, top speed, 32.53. Mystical Power, 33.97 miles an hour. Now, Mystical Power's race a little bit more slowly run, but nonetheless, I think he's a faster horse. Look at his finishing speed percentage, 109.91 compared to Tully Hill, 105.41. So what we're saying is that Mystical Power is a slightly better jumper than Tully Hill, and I think he's a faster horse. I think speed is his main asset, the hood on today to try and harness that speed, enable him to produce it late on. So we looked at 2 horses who jump okay. Mystical Power slightly better than Tully Hill. Here's one who jumps really well. And you would have perhaps seen Nick Luck talking to Patrick Mullins yesterday about Mr. Jiff. and he can really jump well, this fella. Look at that, 6.95 lengths he gained. He's in front at the second last hurdle. That's a tremendous gain. You don't see that very often from lightly raced horses. This is his first run for Willie Mullins. Look at that, pinging the last. 5.7 lengths he gained there as well. He is in a completely different world when it comes to jumping compared to his two stable companions. Now, whether he's experienced enough or good enough, time will tell. But look at these overall figures for Mr. Jiff at Limerick. 22.14 lengths he gained through that race. Yes, he got an easy lead and got his own way in front, but he's a brilliant jumper. Ballycallan King gained over 8 and Whole of the Business just over 3. So a lot of them putting in good rounds of jumping, but 22.14 for Mr. Jiff. Boy, is he a good jumper. If you think that Tully Hill in his race, when he got his own way, he lost over a length, and Mystical Power just gained about 2 lengths. So it's interesting what the data can throw up as far as jumping is concerned, and I think as far as speed is concerned, Mystical Power will probably be quicker than both of his stable companions. Let's have a look at the market and see where they figure. Mystical Power is joint favourite at 3-1 with Tully Hill. 4-1 Slade Steel. I think the race will be run to suit him. I think there's going to be a pretty strong gallop. 6-1 Firefox. 15-2 Jellicoe du Repenay for Nicky Henderson. Mr. Jiff there, he's 11-1. He's a very interesting runner given those jumping stats courtesy of Race IQ. Asian Master 14s, 20s and bigger the rest. So 11 go in the Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle. The only non-runner on the card. Number 4. So we've got joint favourites at the moment. I'm favouring Mystical Power. Let's see what the guys think.
Angus, thank you. Yes, plenty of food for thought there, and the Race IQ data, Dan, certainly lending an extra dimension to our coverage this week. We'll see how it translates here. First of all, is it a strong Supreme overall, do you think? Could we see a real star come out of this?
I think it's a very open Supreme. I think in terms of quality, the absence of Ballyburn is quite strongly felt. He's the only horse in terms of bare form as it stands who would have sort of been representative of a fairly average Supreme winner this time around. They're probably 5 or 6 short of what like the highest rated horse in the race would normally be. But that's half not the point anyway. This race is more about, it's a bit like the bumper, what they can achieve on the day. Not many horses come here and don't have to improve on what they've done so far. So one of them will leap out of the ground. Which one it is a tricky call. I think for the Mystical Power perspective, it's good for them that it's the first race on the card and they're not dealing with really churned up ground later in the day, because I think that was the one point to raise that Angus said. He probably is the fastest horse in the race. The way he got into things at Galway, the move he made to settle the race last time out was that of a speed horse. He's by Galileo. He's obviously out of Annie Power's superbly well-bred horse, but probably more about speed than stamina. And after much of the lead up thinking, oh well, it's always good to soft on the opening day, you maybe have to revisit that now. And will he be blunted slightly, and will this become one of those Supremes, a bit like we saw a few years ago when Binocular was the smooth travelling classy horse who loomed all over Captain CB, and Captain CB turned him away. That's probably 15, 16 years ago now, Gary, just to age us. But it feels like it might be that type of scenario again where maybe the classiest horse doesn't win this. It's the one who's more grizzled and battle-hardened.
Let's have a look at a few of them in action then. We're going to start off with Mystical Power and his win at Punchestown last time. You will have seen this if you were with us a little bit earlier on as Angus was talking about the jumping prowess that this horse showed on this occasion. He was held up in last position throughout this race, Dan, and I thought he picked them up so easily. Yes, he's got an awful lot more on his plate today, but would you agree with me? I think this horse has got an awful lot more to give.
Yeah, I don't think we're anywhere near the bottom of this horse. He's not been in a strongly run race yet. How is that not going to benefit him the way he races? But it's this for me. It's that out of the ordinary pace that he's got, because at Galway on his hurdling debut, he made several mistakes, was really inexperienced, met trouble, but just sort of carted his way to the front before the straight. Here, he had more room to manoeuvre, but again, it's the burst of pace, that change of gear that he has, that he's bred to have as well, that allowed him to come between rivals and settle this very quickly as well. Will he be blunted on testing ground? I don't know if that's a concern for you, but he feels like a speed horse, and had this been the conventional Supreme, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there's only been 5 Supremes this century where Timeform have called the ground soft. I suspect we'll be calling it heavy after the opening race today. Some of the footage we've seen, you've been out there. will he be blunted in a more of an old school renewal of the Supreme that's more about stamina?
One thing that might give you a little bit of encouragement on that score, if you remember, he was declared to run in the original version of the Lawlers at Naas race over 2.5. He was the only horse actually that came out, I think, when they rescheduled it for the following Friday. So Connections presumably at that stage didn't necessarily feel he was an out-and-out 2-miler. So hopefully we'll see. We'll find out more about him today, that's for sure. Let's check out his stable companion, Tully Hill. As Angus said, his jumping I thought was pretty sloppy when he won at Punchestown last time, but there's a big engine in there, Dannon. I've heard members of the Mullins camp compare him very favourably to Ballyburn in terms of ability. And I'll tell you what, I get the feeling something has changed with this horse in the last week or so, and maybe that's played a part in where Ballyburn has ended up, but you just sense there might have been a light bulb moment on the schooling grounds in recent weeks. Now he's got to go and show us.
Yeah, normally we have the advantage of being able to say, oh, well, the Mullins team have picked this, but when Mark Walsh is the retained rider for JP McManus and they're the first two in the betting, we're not really gleaning any clues from that. I do agree that his jumping as it stands, though, needs to be improved upon. People will hark back and say, oh, well, Faheen wasn't a brilliantly fluent jumper and he still won a novice at the Cheltenham Festival and he won a champion hurdle, but he's just functional, really. A to B. He shifted left a few times here as well. That shouldn't really be an issue going this way around, but he's not one of those who's A to B in a second. He's got the physique of a chaser. Cheveley Park tend not to buy horses that are just going to be hurdlers for the rest of their career. They tend to be dealing in that realm. And the other thing, I suppose, is he's got a record of 3 runs over hurdles. He wasn't workmanlike, but he wasn't sparkling second time out. He was flat out disappointing where the trip was blamed, but it felt too bad to be just the trip alone.
He looked in trouble a long way out that day, didn't he?
He emptied quite badly. Yes, Ballyburn was beaten as well on his hurdling debut by Firefox when you're trying to compare those two top flight Mullins novices. But I think in his case, he will do well to win a Supreme if he jumps as he has so far. It might be, as you say, it might be a liable moment and his schooling is really electrified and we're now dealing with a really fluent 2-mile hurdler. But he doesn't strike me as an out-and-out 2-mile hurdler, even though he's a very good bumper horse. And certainly his jumping is more about getting over rather than gaining lengths, as the race IQ data shows. Certainly you compare it to what Mr. Gift did, who, as Angus said, gained 5.7 lengths at the last alone when he winged that when en route to that devastating reappearance.
Well, Dan mentioned there that the only horse to have beaten Ballyburn in his National Hunt career to date is Firefox, and we're going to have a look at that race at Fairyhouse now back in December. I've got to be honest, Dan, I don't think this is particularly relevant. Firefox had race fitness on his side here. Ballyburn's connections, even in the run-up to the race, were kind of playing things down. And Willie Mullins actually told us afterwards that Paul Townend wanted to make the running and he didn't let him this day. So to me, that all adds up to Firefox having the run of a slowly run race. He's a very good horse, Firefox, but we can't take this literally.
I agree. All you need to do is look up the anti-post book when Ballyburn was a potential runner for this race, the difference in price. So the market was alive to the fact that this is a fairly misrepresentative piece of form. This is the time of year when Willie's just giving the others a chance, isn't it? He's sort of tempting Gordon to think, oh, it might be your championship this year. Yeah, it is. And suddenly, around December time, the afterburners kick in, and he starts winning absolutely everything. It was a crawl of a race. He was lacking match practice. Firefox was sharp and up and running, and it showed on the day. You wouldn't be betting even money the pair if they were to turn up again against each other. And I think Firefox, again, the trip was mentioned for him as a reason for his demise when he was sent off favourite in the Reading Tommy Wrong race at DRF. But for me, there was more to it than that. This is a half-brother to the boss's Oscar. He shouldn't be failing for lack of stamina. I almost think that was him beating on merit.
The thing that might have been a physical issue, but Gordon Elliott has spoken about that, I think, in the interim. So maybe that might explain it, but he did go out pretty tamely, didn't he?
I think that's just it. For people to be reaching for the trip felt a bit ambitious given how he's bred, and if it was something physical. Look, he did look like he was going to finish closer for a long way. He was within a length. He turned in, travelling perfectly well. I have doubts about that form generally anyway, finishing in a bit of a heap like that. But I'm going back to the main point. Is he a better horse than Ballyburn because he's beaten him once? I'd say categorically no.
More Ballyburn form to show you now in the shape of Slade Steele, who chased home the Star Novice Hurdler at the Dublin Racing Festival. 9:59 on Sunday morning, Dan. Connections declared him for this.
Yeah, Jamie Spencer on decks.
They kept their cards very close to their chest. Have they made the right decision, do you think?
Well, you'd been more
They've avoided Ballyburn anyway.
They've avoided Ballyburn. The rain has probably come in their favour because it should make it more of a test of stamina. I don't think he's an outright slow horse by any means. Look, he's behind the best novice hurdler of this generation, in my opinion, certainly this season, and he's beaten the rest convincingly. I think he's a really likeable, honest, good jumping as well. I'd say he's a better jumper than Tully Hill, and I think a greater emphasis on stamina that will hopefully be provided by a well-run Supreme on even more testing ground than we saw at the DRF will stand him in good stead. I think my belief at the time was Ballyburn will just go and win the Supreme and he'll probably go and win the Bearing Bingham. They've decided to go for this. We know what Henry's like this week. You don't disregard everything that's gone before, but there's a huge history of his horses really peaking for Cheltenham. If he can add 6 or 7 pounds, I actually think he might be the one to beat. I like the fact he's got this proven stamina, and I don't think there are any questions over his jumping that you can maybe level at Tully Hill.
Believe it or not, there is some home train involvement in this year's Supreme Novice Hurdle. One man who's got his horses in tremendous form at the moment, Dan, is Ben Pauling. What about his contender here, Tell Her the Name? He's won a couple of times at Hunting and had a blip in between. It's a big, big step up, obviously, but the stable couldn't be in better nick.
No, they couldn't, and I don't think he should be underestimated. One thing you might know, a physical problem was cited for his disappointment in what was the Tolworth, is now the Formby at Aintree. He ran there. That's the only time he's had a misstep in his career so far. Ground was the most testing it's been there than he's faced so far, so it might be an ongoing concern because they took him out of the Betfair on account of the ground. I suppose when you get to a Supreme, though, it's once a year, you have a crack. But again, I don't think this is to be underestimated. He's already thrashed Lucky Place. Lucky Place has got a mark of 137 in the Coral Cup. This is a destruction, complete demolition job. This is what I like about it. Watch how fast he's going as he passes the line. He takes an absolute age to pull up. He's all class. He's pushed Django Bay close on his hurdling debut. Dartmoor Pirate, the runner-up that day, has been 4th in the EBF off a mark in the 120s. I think his form is good. Whether he will be blunted by testing ground again is a doubt, and I suspect it's a doubt for Connections as well, but I think this horse is a smashing prospect. He's got the looks, he's got the form, and he's got the gears as well, I think, to maybe develop into a really good 2-mile hurdler and chaser in time. But the formidable Irish battalions mean it won't just be a case of turning up here and landing the odds. He's got to do a fair bit more.
So that's Tell Her the Name. The shortest price member of the home contingent, though, of course, is Jericho de Repine. We haven't been able to have a look at him in action, Dan, but his form, I think, looks a bit better now maybe than people were giving it credit for a few weeks back. The Doncaster race has worked out well. Do you feel the worry about the stable form is kind of built into the price now? We kind of touched on that earlier on.
I don't know if it is to some extent. I think people have just gone off him to some extent because there was so much talk. When he was put into those anti-post markets, we were discussing as an early favourite for the Supreme, a very early juncture of the season. I think a lot of people just went off him for that reason. It's not his fault he's been put in that price. And then you've had 2 coast homes at Newbury. I thought he was really impressive visually, but he didn't beat anything of much note at all. I actually thought Doncaster was a performance that made me slightly more of a believer. Yes, he's not another Constitution Hill. He didn't obliterate useful novices, but he had to scrap. And as you've referenced, he was well on top at the finish for one thing, and Lump Sum's come out and won the Dovecote. Second in the Dovecote was Fiercely Proud. Fiercely Proud finished 3rd that day. So it's a better piece of form, even though the horse he was odds on, but LLA Fonte went up to air and won next time. So there's more substance to that form than perhaps it appeared, and surely that will have benefited him. You'd rather him coming into it on the back of that Doncaster race where he's had to get down and dirty than the 2 wins at Newbury where he hasn't really had to come off the bridle and be educated.
Okay, let's draw a line under this one then. So many imponderables, Dan, quite a few of them unproven on what we feel is probably going to be heavy ground, even if it hasn't been called out officially by the time of the first race. It's going to be bordering on it at the very least. How do you see it shaking down?
I think it might develop into a bit of a war. I think it'd be easy for the jockeys to ride it like a normal Supreme, wouldn't it? Remember Noland nabbing Strawbear a few years ago. We talked about Captain CB outstaying Binocular. I think it might be Slade Steele, the one who's doing the outstaying this time. I think he's a really solid, likeable horse who in a test at 2 miles in a well-run race, I'm sure can find £7 or £8 at least.
Okay, we have a really interesting race to lift the curtain on the 2024 festival. That is the Sky Bet Supreme Novice Hurdle at 1:30.
Mark your card. Proudly sponsored by Timeform.